Our next speaker is an undefeated 5 times champion on the American television show Jeopardy and was 4 questions away from winning $1 million on the television show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Aside from her successful television runs, she is also executive at the leading telecom equipment manufacturers, an expert in the 5G space. Please welcome Leslie Shannon, the head of ecosystem and trend scouting at Nokia.
Thank you very much, Jensen. Competitive trivia is my hobby. But what I do for work is I am Nokia's lead trend scout. I am located in Silicon Valley. And so I'm not actually going to be talking to you about Nokia today. What I'm going to be talking to you about is the things that I see happening outside in the world, what phone companies and other entities are doing with 5G. So I want to show you the concrete examples of how 5G is being used, and then I'm going to take you on where 5G is going to take us. But before I start talking about how 5G is going to be used, let me spend a moment or two to talk about why 5G is different from the previous Gs, because it is. It is, and it's because you keep hearing people talking about, more bandwidth and lower latency. That's great. Well, there's a really significant differentiator that comes from that combination that we don't really talk about directly so much. And it's what I call splitting the chip. So if we think about where we are today in terms of the compute infrastructure that we have these end devices, gaming consoles or, smartphones or laptops, and they have chips in them that are basically mini supercomputers. And so, it's great. They can work all kinds of magic, but they also cost a lot. They generate a lot of heat and they have a short battery life. And so, yay, except, we still have some problems that need to be solved. Now, what 5G allows is, as I said, this concept, splitting the chip. And what I mean by that is being able to have end devices that have within them the minimum amount of processing necessary for them to do whatever it is that they're doing. And, and then using 5G to connect back to a bank of servers sitting in the network. And that connection, and you can't do this with 4G. You absolutely cannot. 4G is not fast enough and it can't carry enough data. That actually means that you can have this tiny chip in the end device, but you're ultimately gaining more overall compute power in real time. And it's 5G that is the absolute mortar that cements these two bricks together. And so what this does is it gives you lower processing power in the end device, resulting in lower cost, lower heat, longer battery life, but ultimately much like exponentially more processing power potentially. And that is actually powering many of the different areas that I look at in my own research. So robotics, drones, augmented reality, mixed reality, the metaverse, wireless virtual reality, visual analytics, cloud gaming, and many more things. These are the main areas that I see where there's actually going to be serious transformational developments with opportunities for money making from telcos, which Mr. Amidi mentioned at the top of the thing. That's the name of the game for everybody, right? So how is 5G going to make more money? Well, let's look at some of the ways that 5G is being used around the world. So let's look at the start. Some transportation. Milton Keynes in the UK, and actually there's a lot of really interesting plays by local governments that are happening now in 5G with smart city deployments and with mobility deployments. And this Milton Keynes example is one of them. So Milton Keynes has announced that they're going to be working with 5G to their ultimate goal is to actually get driverless mobility all through the city, but they're focusing to begin with on the stadium area. And so they're going to be looking at driverless vehicles taking people in and around the stadium area to and from the train station, deliveries of goods as well as of people, and using drones, autonomous drones as well, to monitor traffic and security during events. And to do this kind of learning, and this is actually something we see quite a lot in 5G implementations, starting off with something small and manageable, and then using that and planning for that to be the learning platform. So not come on, new stuff. Not everything goes right the first time, but instead of, which has been kind of I've been in the industry for a long time, and so sometimes in telco we tend not to have the fail fast and learn from it, or experiment fast and learn from it mentality, which is common in Silicon Valley. Instead, we tend to more often, well, if it doesn't work out exactly as we thought, then we shut down the business division and fire everybody who was involved, and we lose the expertise and we lose the learning. So in 5G, I've been really pleased to see a lot more operators taking this much more experimental approach and saying, okay, even if it doesn't come out the way that we expected it to, then we are planning to learn from it, and we are planning to build those learnings into the next wave of what we're doing. So some good mindsets here, which are good practices as well. Another cool thing in the transportation area that's happening is Sprint built, now T-Mobile has since engulfed Sprint, but they originally created this, so I like to give them credit. Atlanta has a big tech park, just gigantic tech park outside of it called Peachtree Corners. Sprint covered it with 5G, and then they worked with a company called Tortoise e-scooters to provide autonomously driven scooters over 5G. Now, here's the catch. They are not actually driven by AI. They are autonomous because they're actually being driven by operators who are located in Mexico City, where it is cheaper to pay people to do this than it is in Atlanta. And but the 5G connection is absolutely key, because so what happens is you step outside of your building, you call one of these scooters with your smartphone app. The scooter comes to you, and that's being driven by somebody in Mexico City connecting over 5G. Then you get on the scooter, you take control, you take it to wherever in the park you need to go. And then when you get off, you just leave the scooter where it is. And then the autonomous driver actually picks it up and then drives it to either a charging station or on to the next customer. And again, you need 5G for this kind of thing, because if you're actually, if it's there can't be any lag here. If you say turn left, it needs to be now. It can't be, oh, in a little bit. Um, and then another kind of take on 5G for the accuracy and driving on a much smaller scale is Helsinki University Hospital has worked with Elisa in Finland to provide 5G. They put 5G all through the hospital, and they're actually working together to explore different things that 5G can enable in the hospital. And I see a lot of these exploratory partnerships with various industry verticals, and I love it. You can't know what problems are going to be solved until you get out there and start asking the questions and start playing around with it. Well, one of the things that they've actually come up with is this, especially with COVID, for COVID patients, the doctors and the nurses being able to drive this little robot into the hospital room of the patient and then talk to them over the video screen. And again, you need 5G for that, because if you're remotely driving this thing around in areas where you don't have a visual line of sight, the commands have to be immediate, or the robot's going to crash into a wall or into a person or into the patient, not good. And so and that's really the business case for these mobility use cases that we're seeing. But where there's going to be actually really significant change, I believe, is in the world of augmented reality and virtual reality. And one of the areas that has been one of the first to embrace virtual reality in enterprise has been the world of architecture. And, just being able to, have a CAD generated, mock up, the architectural plan of a building, being able to put on a VR headset and walk into it and walk through it and bring your customer into it. That's been architectural firms have been doing that for the last several years with great success. But the problem is that these CAD files are so gigantic that you can only do that when you're indoors connected to some kind of giant connection, usually with a wire cable running from the headset to some kind of big fat fiber or a big fat PC. And so the problem has been, how do you actually take that information and how do you actually put it available on site? And so Telstra in Australia, they've been working with the largest construction company there, Taylor Construction. And so Telstra has partnering with Taylor, put 5G sites at building locations, new building locations, and having that 5G, and this is where the bandwidth comes in, that actually enables these giant files, these giant CAD files, to be hauled down over 5G. And now people who are on site wearing a HoloLens can actually walk through the actual full-size 3D mock-up of the building plan and see it on site. And the people from Taylor, there's a wonderful YouTube video from them, and they're like, oh my God, this is such a game changer, because no matter how well you plan, when you actually marry the building plan to the physical location where it's going to go, you always discover something that you didn't expect. Oh, look, that staircase runs into that hill. Okay. And so this way they can actually make the necessary changes while it's before any brick has been laid. And that just saves tons of money. Another thing that they're doing in these implementations is safety and safety monitoring. And so they've put 8K cameras, and 8K, that's a lot of pixels. And so you can't run that over 4G. That needs a 5G connection to carry this massive stream from the 8K cameras. Well, why do they have 8K cameras all around the building site? Because the people who come onto the building site, everyone has their own hard hat that has a QR code on it that identifies who they are. And with those 8K cameras, they're able to spot from a distance and read the QR codes without the people needing to go and like hold their head up to some kind of camera as they walk on site. Because, construction sites are porous, people coming in from all ways. And so this actually lets them check the identity of the person, as indicated by that QR code, against the register of people who have received the safety training for that particular site. And if someone is on site who has not received the safety training, then the foreman can immediately be flagged to get that person off the site, get them the training, and then they can come back on. So in terms of having subcontractors and suppliers and all kinds of things on the site, that's a great way to be able to manage things, which reduces the company's insurance cost at the same time that it increases safety. So some really nice, very practical uses of 5G coming out of Australia there. And looking more on the consumer side, because the telcos that I speak to, a lot of our customers, one of the common refrains that I hear is like, well, okay, for 5G for enterprise, we can kind of figure that out because it's, it's usually you've got fixed footprint, like the Taylor construction thing. And so you know where to put the base stations, you know where to put the small cells, and it's finite, and you have a limited number of use cases. The consumer angle of 5G is much harder. And, I agree. Well, BT, British Telecom in the UK, they're actually working to create, they recently received a grant from the British government to create AR and VR experiences for live sport associated with their BT Sport properties that they own, that are their television broadcasts. And so this is part of a 20-month project. It only started like 1 or 2 months ago. So, fingers crossed, I hope they can accomplish this. But this is really what they're planning. So in connection with some of their sporting events, they're looking at boxing and I believe football, soccer. Now, there's two elements here. And so if you have the AR glasses and you're sitting in your living room and you're watching the TV screen, not only will you see the boxers themselves or the football players recreated on the tabletop in front of you, and the action matching what's happening on the screen. They may need to delay the broadcast a little bit to make that happen, but we'll see. But then the other element is actually this having augmented reality, the graphics that ordinarily would appear on the screen itself, having those actually appear around in a frame around the television screen. And the way that television graphics work is that there's these director signals that are embedded in the actual broadcast. And that's how the production element of it is put together. Well, what BT is looking at is actually leveraging the director signals that are embedded in the TV broadcast, and then using those to generate in the home the augmented reality experience of having the graphics actually appear, to make it, even if you've got a small television, now your experience is actually a very large and not quite immersive, but getting much closer. So these are the two things that they're looking at that I think are very exciting. And 5G is absolutely required for all of this. It's linked to the television broadcast, but it's actually 5G that's bringing the data to the actual headsets. And so, I don't have much time here, so I've got tons more examples, but I'm actually going to move to looking at the future, because the future is very significant, and there's some things that are coming that are going to change the very nature of the relationship between humans and computers. And so, for example, Apple, there's rumors, and I have to stress, there are rumors. There's rumors that Apple is working on some kind of head-mounted device for augmented reality. Okay, that's great. Apple themselves have neither confirmed nor denied this, but we can actually see what patents they've filed. And one of the patents that they have filed has me very excited about this. Oh, and the rumors are kind of, 2022, 2023. I've just recently heard end of 2021. We'll see. Anyway, sometime in the next 2 years, have that window in mind, something rolling out. But the patent that has me particularly excited is this one. Apple has filed a patent to be able to do vision correction over augmented reality glasses. Now, the problem with augmented reality glasses is if I need to put them on my head for work, I'll do that. If it's necessary for me to complete my task at work, I will put these things on my face. But I'm going to take them off as soon as that task is done. How do you get people? How do you break into the mass market with this? How do you get people to actually wear these things on their head full time? Well, sensory enhancement, like, oh, look, I already wear glasses full time because I can't see unless I have these. Locating vision correction inside augmented reality glasses gives people a reason to wear glasses full time. And the splitting the chip work that I spoke about, and that work, it's not done. That work is going on right now. And actually, Qualcomm is one of the companies that's working very, very heavily on this. Having the lightest possible processing in here gives me longer battery life. It means it doesn't generate much heat, but it also means that most of the functionality that these can actually do is not being done locally. It is actually being not very far from me in the network, and 5G is the bridge. And that is the thing that actually is going to unlock a huge amount of capability from augmented reality head-mounted devices. And so we've got vision correction. Okay, that's a pretty good one. Facebook has been working in their reality labs on audio solutions, audio enhancement, matching, again, with a head mounted device. And these are lab devices, obviously, but through a head mounted device, matching the gaze of the person and then enhancing the audio of whatever it is that they're looking at. So here, the person on the left would, if he's looking at the guy across the table, then it's his voice that would actually be emphasized in what he's hearing. But if he turns and he looks at the television, then that would actually be what is emphasized. And if a waiter comes up and talks to the table and you look at the waiter, then that's the voice that's prioritized. So over noisy environments, but also, great for people who don't have very good hearing. These are sensory enhancements, I believe, are the kinds of things that are actually going to unlock mass market augmented reality about 2 years from now. But if we think about it also, what are other things that could go into glasses like this from a sensory enhancement point of view? Well, speech to text is very good these days. Why not use speech to text over for catching the audio for what this guy is saying, sending it over 5G to a server nearby, translating it to text, and now I've got subtitles. Now I've got subtitles for everyday conversations happening around me. Well, if we're doing that, why don't we actually connect it to a translation engine? And so let's give me subtitles in English, just translating the Mandarin that I'm hearing from the person across the table. These are the kinds of things that I think are going to be the things that make augmented reality take off. Very functional kinds of things that everyone can relate to, that solve everyday problems, and that get people to actually start wearing these glasses full time. And then but then the magic is that once you've actually got these glasses on your head, because it's solving the problem of how do I see better, how do I hear better, how do you actually interact with these? What's the interface? Well, again, if we look at patents that have been filed, Apple has filed patents to look at cameras to be able to understand your hands, and real glasses, same thing. If we actually have the ability to kind of have things hanging out there in midair. And then if the glasses can track where our hands are, now suddenly we have the ability to create midair menus, touch, swipe, interact. Also, voice interaction is going to be, gigantic. And so suddenly you have Jarvis. You have, Jarvis from Iron Man sitting on your face. And that's really only a couple of years away. And for those of you who attended or who saw the keynote speech at Facebook Connect this past September, this is, shamelessly have stolen the slide from Michael Abrash, their Chief Technology Officer. This is, like I said, this is going to be a fundamental change in the relationship between humans and computers, because until now, computing has meant looking at a flat two-dimensional screen. But where it's going is actually, and so your gaze ends at the screen. But where this is going is actually shifting to having us look through our computing and to have the computer now look at the world with us and to be able to understand the context of where we are and what we're doing. And this is going to change everything. And it is not possible without 5G and the split chip. And so that's why 5G is important. And that's why 5G is going to change the world. And that's why 5G is going to give us lots and lots of fabulous new revenues. And the last paradigm that we had, the last paradigm change was moving mobile data from what we see here to this. We're due for the next paradigm change for mobile data. And I believe firmly it's going to be through head-mounted augmented reality devices. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Leslie. That's a good spot to end it. And sorry we had to cut you off a little
Oh,
early.
that's quite all right. No, I was good.
Time here. I think there's a couple questions in the Q&A directed towards you. So if you had some time, we'd love it if you could take a look at those and maybe get back to those participants.
Definitely.
Hello.